Act 1 of Iolanthe by W.S. Gilbert. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Iolanthe, or The Peer and the Peri. Dramatis Personae.
Fairy Queen, read by Jennifer Fournier.
Iolanthe, read by Christine G.
Celia, read by Lydia.
Layla, read by Vanessa Cooley.
Fleta, read by Vorbel.
Strephon, read by Shakira.
The Lord Chancellor, read by Brad Philippone.
Lord Mount Ararat, read by Rob Board.
Lord Tallaller, read by Todd.
Private Willis, read by Alan Mapstone.
Chorus Fairies, read by
Kay Hand
and
Ruhi Huck.
Chorus Peers, read by
John Burlinson
and
Alan Mapstone.
Narration and Phyllis, read by Beth Thomas. Act 1. Scene, an Arcadian landscape. A river runs around the back of the stage. A rustic bridge crosses the river. Enter fairies, led by Layla, Celia, and Fleta. They trip around the stage, singing as they dance.
Tripping hither, tripping thither, nobody knows why or whither. We must dance and we must sing, round about our fairy ring.
We are dainty little fairies, ever singing, ever dancing. We indulge in our vagaries, in a fashion most entrancing. If you ask the special function of our never-ceasing motion, we reply without compunction that we haven't any notion.
No, we haven't any notion. Tripping hither, tripping thither, nobody knows why or whither. We must dance and we must sing, round about our fairy ring.
If you ask us how we live, lovers all essentials give. We can ride on lovers' sighs, warm ourselves in lovers' eyes, bathe ourselves in lovers' tears, clothe ourselves with lovers' fears, arm ourselves with lovers' darts, hide ourselves in lovers' hearts. When you know us, you'll discover that we almost live on lover.
Yes, we live on lover. Tripping hither, tripping thither, nobody knows why or whither. We must dance and we must sing, round about our fairy ring.
Oh, it's all very well, but since our queen banished Iolanthe, fairy rebels have not been what they were.
Iolanthe was the life and soul of fairyland. Why, she wrote all our songs and arranged all our dances. We sing her songs and we trip her measures, but we don't enjoy ourselves.
To think that 25 years have elapsed since she was banished. What could she have done to have deserved so terrible a punishment?
Something awful. She married a mortal.
Oh, is it injudicious to marry a mortal?
Injudicious! It strikes at the root of the whole fairy system. By our laws, the fairy who marries a mortal dies.
But Iolanthe didn't die.
Enter Fairy Queen.
No, because your queen, who loved her with a surpassing love, commuted her sentence to penal servitude for life, on condition that she left her husband and never communicated with him again.
That sentence of penal servitude she is now working out on her head at the bottom of that stream.
Yes, but when I banished her, I gave her all the pleasant places of the earth to dwell in. I'm sure I never intended that she should go and live at the bottom of a stream. It makes me perfectly wretched to think of the discomfort she must have undergone.
Think of the damp, and her chest was always delicate.
And the frogs. Ugh! I never shall enjoy any peace of mind until I know why Iolanthe went to live among the frogs.
Then why not summon her and ask her?
Why? Because if I set eyes on her, I should forgive her at once.
Then why not forgive her? 25 years, it's a long time.
Think how we loved her.
Loved her? What was your love to mine? Why, she was invaluable to me. Who taught me to curl myself inside a buttercup? Iolanthe. Who taught me to swing upon a cobweb? Iolanthe. Who taught me to dive into a dewdrop, to nestle in a nutshell, to gambol upon gossamer. Iolanthe!
She certainly did surprising things.
Oh, give her back to us, great queen, for your sake if not for ours.
All kneel in supplication. Queen irresolute.
Oh, I should be strong, but I am weak. I should be marble, but I am clay. Her punishment has been heavier than I intended. I did not mean that she should live among the frogs, and, well, it shall be as you wish. It shall be as you wish. Iolanthe, from thy dark exile thou art summoned. Come to our call. Come, come, Iolanthe.
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 Come to our call, Iolanthe. Iolanthe, come.
Iolanthe rises from the water. She is clad in water weeds. She approaches the queen with head bent and arms crossed.
With humbled breast, and every hope laid low, to thy behest, offended queen, I bow.
For a dark sin against our fairy laws, we sent thee into lifelong banishment. But mercy holds her sway within our hearts. Rise, thou art pardoned.
Pardoned!
Pardoned!
Her weeds fall from her, and she appears clothed as a fairy. The queen places a diamond coronet on her head and embraces her. The others also embrace her.
Welcome to our hearts again, Iolanthe, Iolanthe. We have shared thy bitter pain, Iolanthe, Iolanthe. Every heart and every hand in our loving little band welcomes thee to fairyland, Iolanthe.
And now, tell me, with all the world to choose from, why on earth did you decide to live at the bottom of that stream?
To be near my son, Strephon.
Bless my heart. I didn't know you had a son.
He was born soon after I left my husband by a royal command, but he does not even know of his father's existence.
How old is he?
24.
24? No one to look at you would think you had a son of 24. But that's one of the advantages of being immortal. We never grow old. Is he pretty?
He is extremely pretty, but he's inclined to be stout.
Oh.
I see no objection to stoutness, in moderation.
And what is he?
He's an Arcadian shepherd, and he loves Phyllis, a ward in Chancery.
A mere shepherd, and he half a fairy.
He's a fairy down to the waist, but his legs are mortal.
Dear me!
I have no reason to suppose that I am more curious than other people. But I confess, I should like to see a person who is a fairy down to the waist, but whose legs are mortal.
Nothing easier, for here he comes.
Enter Strephon, singing and dancing and playing on a flageolet. He does not see the fairies, who retire upstage as he enters.
Good morrow, good mother. Good mother, good morrow. By some means or other, pray banish your sorrow. With joy beyond telling, my bosom is swelling, so join in a measure expressive of pleasure. For I'm to be married today, today. Yes, I'm to be married today.
Yes, he's to be married today, today. Yes, he's to be married today.
Then the Lord Chancellor has at last given his consent to your marriage with his beautiful ward Phyllis.
Not he, indeed. To all my tearful prayers he answers me, a shepherd lad is no fit helpmate for a ward of Chancery. I stood in court, and there I sang him songs of Arcady, with flageolet accompaniment, in vain. At first he seemed amused, so did the bar, but quickly wearying of my song and pipe, bade me get out. A servile usher then, in crumpled bands and rusty bombazine, led me still singing into Chancery Lane. I'll go no more. I'll marry her today and brave the upshot, be what it may.
Sees the fairies.
But who are these?
Oh, Strephon, rejoice with me. My queen has pardoned me.
Pardoned you, mother? This is good news indeed.
And these ladies are my beloved sisters.
Your sisters? Then they are my aunts.
A pleasant piece of news for your bride on her wedding day.
Hush! My bride knows nothing of my fairyhood. I dare not tell her, lest it frighten her. She thinks me mortal, and prefers me so.
Your fairyhood doesn't seem to have done you much good.
Much good? My dear aunt, it's the curse of my existence. What's the use of being half a fairy? My body can creep through a keyhole, but what's the good of that when my legs are left kicking behind? I can make myself invisible down to the waist, but that's of no use when my legs remain exposed to view. My brain is a fairy brain, but from the waist downwards I'm a gibbering idiot. My upper half is immortal, but my lower half grows older every day, and some day or other must die of old age. What's to become of my upper half when I've buried my lower half, I really don't know.
Poor fellow!
I see your difficulty, but with a fairy brain you should seek an intellectual sphere of action. Let me see. I've a borough or two at my disposal. Would you like to go into Parliament?
A fairy member? That would be delightful.
I'm afraid I should do no good there. You see, down to the waist, I'm a Tory of the most determined description. But my legs are a couple of confounded radicals, and on a division, they'd be sure to take me into the wrong lobby. You see, they're 2 to 1, which is a strong working majority.
Don't let that distress you. You shall be returned as a Liberal Conservative, and your legs shall be our peculiar care.
Strephon, bowing.
I see your Majesty does not do things by halves.
No, we are fairies down to the feet. Fare thee well, attractive stranger.
Fare thee well, attractive stranger.
Shouldst thou be in doubt or danger, peril or perplexity, call us and we'll come to thee.
Aye, call us and we'll come to thee. Tripping hither, tripping thither, nobody knows why or whither. We must now be taking wing to another fairy ring.
Fairies and Queen trip off. Iolanthe, who takes an affectionate farewell of her son, going off last. Enter Phyllis, singing and dancing, and accompanying herself on a flageolet. Good morrow, good lover, good morrow. I prithee discover, steal, purchase, or borrow some means of concealing the care you are feeling, and join in a measure expressive of pleasure, for we're to be married today. Yes, we're to be married today. Yes, we're to be married today. Yes, we're to be married today. Strephon, embracing her.
My Phyllis, and today we are to be made happy forever.
Well, we're to be married.
It's the same thing.
I suppose it is. But oh, Strephon, I tremble at the step I'm taking. I believe it's penal servitude for life to marry a ward of court without the Lord Chancellor's consent. I shall be of age in 2 years. Don't you think you could wait 2 years?
2 years? Have you ever looked in the glass?
No, never.
Here, look at that.
Showing her a pocket mirror.
And tell me if you think it is rational to expect me to wait 2 years.
Phyllis, looking at herself. No, you're quite right. It's asking too much. One must be reasonable.
Besides, who knows what will happen in 2 years? Why, you might fall in love with the Lord Chancellor himself by that time.
Yes, he's a clean old gentleman.
As it is, half the House of Lords are sighing at your feet.
The House of Lords are certainly extremely attentive.
Attentive? I should think they were. Why did 25 Liberal peers come down to shoot over your grass plot last autumn? It couldn't have been the sparrows. Why did 25 Conservative peers come down to fish your pond? Don't tell me it was the goldfish. No, no, delays are dangerous, and if we are to marry, the sooner the better.
None shall part us from each other, one in life and death are we, all in all to one another, I to thee and thou to me. Thou the tree and I the flower, thou the idol, I the throng, thou the day and I the hour, thou the singer, I the song.
All in all since that fond meeting, when in joy I woke to find mine the heart within thee beating, mine the love that heart enshrined.
Thou the stream, and I the willow, thou the sculptor, thou the clay, thou the ocean, thou the billow, thou the sunrise, thou the day. Exeunt Strephon and Phyllis together. Enter procession of peers.
Loudly let the trumpet bray, tan tan ta-ra. Proudly bang the sounding brasses, zing boom. As upon its lordly way this unique procession passes, tan tan ta-ra, zing boom. Bow, bow, ye lower middle classes, bow, bow, ye tradesmen, bow, ye masses. Blow the trumpets, bang the brasses, tan tan ta-ra, zing boom. We are peers of highest station, paragons of legislation, pillars of the British nation. Tan tan ta-ra, zing boom.
Enter the Lord Chancellor, followed by his train-bearer.
The law is the true embodiment of everything that's excellent. It has no kind of fault or flaw, and I, my lords, embody the law. The constitutional guardian I of pretty young wards in Chancery, all very agreeable girls, and none are over the age of 21. A pleasant occupation for a rather susceptible Chancellor.
A pleasant occupation for a rather susceptible Chancellor.
But though the compliment implied inflates me with a legitimate pride, it nevertheless can't be denied that it has its inconvenient side. For I'm not so old and not so plain, and I'm quite prepared to marry again, but there'd be the deuce to pay in the Lords if I fell in love with one of my wards, which rather tries my temper, for I'm such a susceptible Chancellor.
Which rather tries his temper, for he's such a susceptible Chancellor.
And every one who'd marry a ward must come to me for my accord, and in my court I sit all day giving agreeable girls away, with one for him, and one for he, and one for you, and one for ye, and one for thou, and one for thee, but never, oh never, a one for me, which is exasperating for a highly susceptible Chancellor.
Which is exasperating for a highly susceptible Chancellor.
Enter Lord Tololla.
And now, my lords, to the business of the day.
By all means. Phyllis, who is a ward of court, has so powerfully affected your lordships that you have appealed to me in a body to give her to whichever one of you she may think proper to select, and a noble lord has just gone to her cottage to request her immediate attendance. It would be idle to deny that I myself have the misfortune to be singularly attracted by this young person. My regard for her is rapidly undermining my constitution. 3 months ago I was a stout man. I need say no more. If I could reconcile it with my duty, I should unhesitatingly award her to myself, for I can conscientiously say that I know no man who is so well fitted to render her exceptionally happy.
Hear, hear!
But such an award would be open to misconstruction, and therefore at whatever personal inconvenience I waive my claim.
My lord, I desire, on the part of this house, to express its sincere sympathy for your lordship's most painful position.
I thank your lordships. The feelings of a Lord Chancellor who is in love with a ward of court are not to be envied. What is his position? Can he give his own consent to his own marriage with his own ward? Can he marry his own ward without his own consent? And if he marries his own ward without his own consent, can he commit himself for contempt of his own court? And if he commit himself for contempt of his own court, can he appear by counsel before himself to move for arrest of his own judgment? Ah, my lords, it is indeed painful to have to sit upon a woolsack which is stuffed with such thorns as these.
Enter Lord Mount Ararat.
My lord, I have much pleasure in announcing that I have succeeded in inducing the young person to present herself at the bar of this house.
Enter Phyllis. My well-loved lord and guardian dear, you summoned me, and I am here.
Oh, rapture!
How beautiful! How gentle! How dutiful! Of all the young ladies I know, this pretty young lady's the fairest. Her lips have the rosiest show, her eyes are the richest and rarest. Her origin's lowly, it's true, but of birth and position I've plenty. I've grammar and spelling for 2, and blood and behaviour for 20. Her origin's lowly, it's true, I've grammar and spelling for 2.
Of birth and position he's plenty, with blood and behaviour for 20.
Though the views of the House have diverged on every conceivable motion, all questions of party are merged in a frenzy of love and devotion. If you ask us distinctly to say what party we claim to belong to, we reply without doubt or delay, the party I'm singing this song to.
I'm very much pained to refuse, but I'll stick to my pipes and my tabors. I can spell all the words that I use, and my grammar's as good as my neighbours'. As for birth, I was born like the rest. My behaviour is rustic but hearty, and I know where to turn for the best when I want a particular party.
Though her station is none of the best, I suppose she was born like the rest. And she knows where to look for her hearty when she wants a particular party.
Nay, tempt me not, to rank I'll not be bound, in lowly cot alone is virtue found.
No, indeed, high rank will never hurt you. The peerage is not destitute of virtue. Spurn not the nobly born with love affected, nor treat with virtuous scorn the well-connected. High rank involves no shame, we boast an equal claim with him of humble name to be respected. Blue blood, when virtuous love is sought, thy power is naught, though dating from the flood. Blue blood, blue blood. When virtuous love is sought, thy power is not, though dating from the flood. Blue blood, blue blood. Spare us the bitter pain of stern denials, nor with low-born disdain augment our trials. Hearts just as pure and fair may beat in Belgrave Square as in the lowly air of Seven Dials. Blue blood, of what avail art thou to serve us now, though dating from the flood? Blue blood, blue blood. Of what avail art thou to serve us now, though dating from the flood? Blue blood, blue blood.
My lords, it may not be. With grief my heart is riven. You waste your time on me, for my heart is given.
Given?
Yes, given.
Oh, horror!
And who has dared to brave our high displeasure and thus defy our definite command?
Enter Strephon.
'Tis I, young Strephon, mine this priceless treasure. Against the world I claim my darling's hand.
Phyllis rushes to his arms.
A shepherd I.
A shepherd he.
Of Arcady.
Of Arcady.
Betrothed are we.
Betrothed are they.
And mean to be.
Espoused today.
A shepherd I of Arcady, betrothed are we, and mean to be espoused today.
A shepherd he of Arcady, betrothed is he, and means to be espoused today.
Lord Mount Ararat and Lord Talola aside to each other.
'Neath this blow, worse than stab of dagger, though we momentarily stagger, in each heart proud are we innately. Let's depart, dignified and stately. Let's depart, dignified and stately. Let's depart, dignified and stately. Though our hearts seem madly bruising, in another's choosing, let's pretend it's most amusing. Ha ha ha, tantara.
Exeunt all the peers, marching round stage with much dignity. Lord Chancellor separates Phyllis from Strephon and orders her off. She follows peers. Manent, Lord Chancellor, and Strephon.
Now, sir, what excuse have you to offer for having disobeyed an order of the Court of Chancery?
My lord, I know no courts of chancery. I go by nature's acts of parliament. The bees, the breeze, the seas, the rooks, the brooks, the gales, the vales, the fountains, and the mountains cry, "You love this maiden, take her, we command you." 'Tis writ in heaven by the bright barbed dart that leaps forth into lurid light from each grim thundercloud. The very rain pours forth her sad and sodden sympathy. When chorused nature bids me take my love, shall I reply, "Nay, but a certain Chancellor forbids it"? Sir, you are England's Lord High Chancellor, but are you Chancellor of birds and trees, King of the winds, and Prince of thunderclouds?
No, it's a nice point. I don't know that I ever met it before. But my difficulty is that at present there's no evidence before the court that chorus nature has interested herself in the matter.
No evidence. You have my word for it. I tell you that she bade me take my love.
Ah, but my good sir, you mustn't tell us what she told you. It's not evidence. Now, an affidavit from a thunderstorm, or a few words on oath from a heavy shower, would meet with all the attention they deserve.
And have you the heart to apply the prosaic rules of evidence to a case which bubbles over with poetical emotion?
Distinctly. I have always kept my duties strictly before my eyes, and it is to that fact that I owe my advancement to my present distinguished position. When I went to the bar as a very young man, said I to myself, said I, "I'll work on a new and original plan," said I to myself, said I. "I'll never assume that a rogue or a thief is a gentleman worthy implicit belief, because his attorney has sent me a brief," said I to myself, said I. "Ere I go into court I will read my brief through," said I to myself, said I. "And I'll never take work I'm unable to do," said I to myself, said I. "My learned profession I'll never disgrace by taking a fee with a grin on my face when I haven't been there to attend to the case," said I to myself, said I. "I'll never throw dust in a juryman's eyes," said I to myself, said I. "Or hoodwink a judge who is not overwise," said I to myself, said I. "Or assume that the witnesses summoned in force in Exchequer, Queen's Bench, Common Pleas, or Divorce, have perjured themselves as a matter of course," said I to myself, said I. "In other professions in which men engage," said I to myself, said I, "the army, the navy, the church, and the stage," said I to myself, said I, "professional licence, if carried too far, your chance of promotion will certainly mar, and I fancy the rule might apply to the bar," said I to myself, said I.
Exit Lord Chancellor. Enter Iolanthe.
Oh, Phyllis, Phyllis, to be taken from you just as I was on the point of making you my own. Oh, it's too much, it's too much.
Iolanthe to Strephon, who is in tears.
My son in tears! And on his wedding day!
My wedding day! Oh, mother, weep with me, for the law has interposed between us, and the Lord Chancellor has separated us for ever.
The Lord Chancellor!
Aside.
Oh, if he did but know!
Strephon, overhearing her.
If he did but know what?
No matter. The Lord Chancellor has no power over you. Remember, you are half a fairy. You can defy him, down to the waist.
Yes, but from the waist downwards he can commit me to prison for years. Of what avail is it that my body is free, if my legs are working out 7 years' penal servitude?
True, but take heart. Our queen has promised you her special protection. I'll go to her and lay your peculiar case before her.
My beloved mother, how can I repay the debt I owe you?
The peers appear at the back, advancing unseen and on tiptoe. Lord Mount Ararat and Lord Talolla lead Phyllis between them, who listens in horror to what she hears. Strephon to Iolanthe.
When darkly looms the day, and all is dull and grey, to chase the gloom away, on thee I'll call.
Phyllis aside to Lord Mount Ararat. What was that? Lord Mount Ararat aside to Phyllis.
I think I heard him say that on a rainy day, to while the time away, on her he'd call.
We think we heard him say that on a rainy day, to while the time away,
on her he'd call.
Phyllis, much agitated at her lover's supposed faithlessness. Iolanthe to Strephon.
When the tempest wreck thy bark, and all is drear and dark, if thou shouldst need an ark, I'll give thee one.
What was that?
I heard the minx remark she'd meet him after dark, inside St. James's Park, and give him one.
We heard the minx remark she'd meet him after dark, inside St. James's Park, and give him one.
The prospect's very bad. My heart so sore and sad will never more be glad as summer's sun.
The prospect's not so bad. Thy heart so sore and sad may very soon be glad as summer's sun.
For when the
sky
sky
is
dark, and tempests wreck
thy
thy bark, if thou shouldst need an ark, she'll give thee one. Phyllis, revealing herself. Ah! Iolanthe and Strephon much confused. O shameless one, tremble! Nay, do not endeavour thy fault to dissemble. We part and for ever. I worshipped him blindly, he worships another.
Attend to me kindly. This lady's my mother.
This lady's his what?
This lady's my mother.
This lady's his what?
He says she's his mother.
They point derisively to Iolanthe, laughing heartily at her. She goes for protection to Strephon. Enter Lord Chancellor. Iolanthe veils herself.
What means this mirth unseemly that shakes the listening earth?
The joke is good extremely, and justifies our mirth.
This gentleman is seen with a maid of 17, a taking of his dolce far niente, and wonders he'd achieve, for he asks us to believe she's his mother, and he's nearly 25.
Lord Chancellor sternly.
Recollect yourself, I pray, and be careful what you say, as the ancient Romans said, festina lente, for I really do not see how so young a girl could be the mother of a man of 25. Ha 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 ha!
My lord, of evidence I have no dearth. She is, has been, my mother from my birth. In babyhood upon her lap I lay, with infant food she moistened my clay. Had she withheld the succour she supplied, by hunger quelled, your Strephon might have died.
Lord Chancellor much moved.
Had that refreshment been denied, indeed our Strephon might have died.
All much affected.
Had that refreshment been denied, indeed our Strephon might have died.
But as she's not his mother, it appears, why weep these hot unnecessary tears? And by what laws should we so joyously rejoice, because our Strephon did not die? Oh, rather let us pipe our eye, because our Strephon did not die.
That's very true. Let's pipe our eye, because our Strephon did not die.
All weep. Iolanthe, who has succeeded in hiding her face from the Lord Chancellor, escapes unnoticed. Go, traitorous one, for ever we must part. To one of you, my lords, I give my heart.
Oh, rapture!
Hear me, Phyllis, ere you leave me.
Not a word, you did deceive me.
Not a word, you did deceive her.
Exit Strephon. For riches and rank I do not long, their pleasures are false and vain. I gave up the love of a lordly throng for the love of a simple swain. But now that simple swain's untrue, with sorrowful heart I turn to you, a heart that's aching, quaking, breaking, as sorrowful hearts are wont to do. The riches and rank that you befall are the only baits you use, so the richest and rankiest of you all my sorrowful heart shall choose. As none are so noble, none so rich, as this couple of lords, I'll find a niche in my heart that's aching, breaking, quaking, for one of you two, and I don't care which. Phyllis to Lord Mount Ararat and Lord Tololla. To you I give my heart so rich. All puzzled.
To which?
I do not care. To you I yield, it is my doom.
To whom?
I'm not aware. I'm yours for life, if you but choose.
She's whose?
That's your affair. I'll be a countess, shall I not?
Of what?
I do not care.
Lucky little lady, Strephon's not shady. Rank is vital. Countess is the title, but of what I'm not aware.
Enter Strephon.
Can I, inactive, see my fortune fade? No, no.
Ho, ho!
Mighty protectress, hasten to my aid.
Enter fairies, tripping, headed by Celia, Layla, and Fleeta, and followed by Queen.
Tripping hither, tripping thither, nobody knows why or whither. Why you want us we don't know, but you summoned us, and so enter all the little fairies to their usual tripping measure. To oblige you all our care is. Tell us, pray, what is your pleasure?
The lady of my love has caught me talking to another.
Oh, fie! Young Strephon is a rogue.
I tell her very plainly that the lady is my mother.
Taradiddle, taradiddle, toll-lay.
She won't believe my statement and declares we must be parted, because on a career of double-dealing I have started, then gives her hand to one of these, and leaves me broken-hearted.
Taradiddle, taradiddle, toll-lay.
Ah, cruel ones, to separate two lovers from each other.
Oh, fie! Our Strephon's not a rogue.
You've done him an injustice, for the lady is his mother.
Taradiddle, taradiddle, toll-lay.
That fable perhaps may serve his turn as well as any other. I didn't see her face, but if they fondled one another, and she's but 17, I don't believe it was his mother.
Taradiddle, taradiddle, toll-lay.
I have often had a use for a thoroughbred excuse of a sudden, which is English for repente. But of all I ever heard, this is much the most absurd. For she's 17, and he is 25. Though she is 17, and he is 4 or 25. Oh, fie! Our Strephon is a rogue.
Now listen, pray, to me, for this paradox will be carried nobody at all contradicente. Her age, upon the date of his birth, was -8, if she's 17 and he is 25.
If she is 17 and he is only 25, to say she is his mother is an utter bit of folly.
Oh, fie! Our
Strephon is a rogue.
Perhaps his brain is addled,
and it's very melancholy. Taradiddle, taradiddle, toll-lay. I won't say a word that can be reckoned as injurious, but to find a mother younger than her son is very curious, and that's the kind of mother that is usually spurious. Taradiddle, taradiddle, toll-lay.
Go away, madam. I should say, madam, you display, madam, shocking taste. It is rude, madam, to intrude, madam, with your brood, madam, brazen-faced. You come here, madam, interfere, madam, with a peer, madam, I am one. You're aware, madam, what you dare, madam, so take care, madam, and be gone.
Let us stay, madam, I should say, madam, they display, madam, shocking taste. It is rude, madam, to allude, madam, to your brood, madam, brazen-faced. We don't fear, madam, any peer, madam, though, my dear madam, this is one. They will stare, madam, when aware, madam, what they dare, madam, what they've done.
Go away, madam, I should say, madam, you display, madam, shocking taste. It is rude, madam, to intrude, madam, with your brood, madam, brazen-faced. You came here, madam, interfere, madam, with a peer, madam, I am one. You're aware, madam, what you dare, madam, so take care, madam, and be gone.
Bearded by these puny mortals, I will launch from fairy portals all the most terrific thunders in my armory of wonders.
Should they launch terrific wonders, all would then repent their blunders. Surely these must be immortals. Exit Phyllis.
O Chancellor unwary, it's highly necessary your tongue to teach respectful speech, your attitude to vary. Your badinage so airy, your manner arbitrary, are out of place when face to face with an influential fairy.
We never knew we were talking to an influential fairy.
A plague on this vagary! I'm in a nice quandary. Of hasty tone with dames unknown I ought to be more chary. It seems that she's a fairy from Anderson's library, and I took her for the proprietor of a ladies' seminary.
We took her for the proprietor of a ladies' seminary.
When next your houses do assemble, you may tremble.
Our wrath when gentlemen offend us is tremendous.
They meet to underrate our calling, doom appalling.
Take down our sentence as we speak it, and he shall wreak it.
Indicating Strephon.
Oh, spare us!
Henceforth, Strephon, cast away crooks and pipes and ribbons so gay, flocks and herds that bleat and low. Into Parliament you shall go.
Into Parliament you shall go, backed by our supreme authority. He'll command a large majority. Into Parliament he shall go.
In the parliamentary hive, Liberal or Conservative, Whig or Tory, I don't know, but into Parliament you shall go.
Into Parliament you shall go, backed by our supreme authority. He'll command a large majority. Into Parliament he shall go.
Every bill and every measure that may gratify his pleasure, though your fury it arouses, shall be passed by both your houses.
Oh!
You shall sit, if he sees reason, through the grouse and salmon season.
No!
He shall end the cherished rights you enjoy on Friday nights.
No!
He shall prick that annual blister, marriage with the deceased wife's sister.
Mercy!
Titles shall ennoble then all the common councilmen.
Spare us!
Peers shall teem in Christendom, and a duke's exalted station be attainable by competitive examination.
Oh, horror!
Their horror they can't dissemble, nor hide the fear that makes them tremble.
Young Strephon is the kind of lout we do not care a fig about. We cannot say what evils may result in consequence. But lordly vengeance will pursue all kinds of common people who oppose our views or boldly choose to offer us offence. He'd better fly at humbler game, or our forbearance he must claim, if he'd escape in any shape a very painful wrench. Your powers we dauntlessly pooh-poo. A dire revenge will fall on you, if you besiege our high prestige. The word prestige is French.
With Strephon for your foe, no doubt, a fearful prospect opens out, and who shall say what evils may result in consequence? A hideous vengeance will pursue all noblemen who venture to oppose his views or boldly choose to offer him offence. 'Twill plunge them into grief and shame, his kind forbearance they must claim, if they'd escape in any shape a very painful wrench. Although our threats you now pooh-pooh, a dire revenge will fall on you, should he besiege your high prestige. The word prestige is French.
Our lordly style you shall not quench with base canaille.
That word is French.
Distinction ebbs before a herd of vulgar plebs.
A Latin word.
'Twould fill with joy and madness stark the hoi polloi.
A Greek remark.
One Latin word, one Greek remark, and one that's French.
Your lordly style will quickly quench with base canaille.
That word is French.
Distinction ebbs before a herd of vulgar plebs.
A Latin word.
'Twill fill with joy and madness start the hoi polloi.
A Greek remark.
One Latin word, one Greek remark, and one that's French.
You needn't wait, away you fly. Your threatened hate we won't defy.
We will not wait to go sky high, our threatened hate you won't defy.
Fairies threaten Piers with their wands. Piers kneel as begging for mercy. Phyllis implores Strephon to relent. He casts her from him, and she falls fainting into the arms of Lord Mount Ararat and Lord Talolla. End of Act 1. Act 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 2. Scene: Palace Yard, Westminster. Westminster Hall. Clock Tower. Private Willis discovered on sentry by moonlight.
When all night long a chap remains on sentry go, to chase monotony, he exercises of his brains, that is, assuming that he's got any. Though never nurtured in the lap of luxury, yet I admonish you, I am an intellectual chap, and think of things that would astonish you. I often think it's comical, fa la la, how nature always does contrive, fa la la, that every boy and every gal that's born into the world alive is either a little liberal or else a little conservative, fa la la. When in that house MPs divide, if they've a brain and cerebellum too, they've got to leave that brain outside and vote just as their leaders tell 'em to. But then the prospect of a lot of dull MPs in close proximity, all thinking for themselves, is what no man can face with equanimity. Then let's rejoice with loud fa la, that nature always does contrive, fa la, that every boy and every gal that's born into the world alive is either a little liberal or else a little conservative, fa la.
Enter fairies with Celia, Layla, and Fleeta. They trip around stage.
Strephon's a member of Parliament, carries every bill he chooses. To his measures all assent, showing that fairies have their uses. Whigs and Tories dim their glories, giving an ear to all his stories. Lords and Commons are both in the blues. Strephon makes them shake in their shoes. Shake in their shoes, shake in their shoes. Strephon makes them shake in their shoes.
Enter Piers from Westminster Hall.
Strephon's a member of Parliament, running amok of all abuses. His unqualified assent somehow nobody now refuses. Whigs and Tories dim their glories, giving an ear to all his stories, carrying every bill he may wish. Here's a pretty kettle of fish, kettle of fish, kettle of fish. Here's a pretty kettle of fish.
Enter Lord Mount Ararat and Lord Talolla from Westminster Hall.
You seem annoyed.
Annoyed? I should think so. Why, this ridiculous protégé of yours is playing the deuce with everything. Tonight is the second reading of his bill to throw the peerage open to competitive examination.
And he'll carry it too.
Carry it? Of course he will. He's a parliamentary Pickford. He carries everything.
Yes, if you please, that's our fault.
The deuce it is.
Yes, we influence the members and compel them to vote just as he wishes them to.
It's our system. It shortens the debates.
Well, but think what it all means. I don't so much mind for myself, but with a House of Peers with no grandfathers worth mentioning, the country must go to the dogs.
I suppose it must.
I don't want to say a word against brains. I've a great respect for brains. I often wish I had some myself. But with a House of Peers composed exclusively of people of intellect, what's to become of the House of Commons?
I never thought of that.
This comes of women interfering in politics. It so happens that if there is an institution in Great Britain which is not susceptible to any improvement at all, it is the House of Peers. When Britain really ruled the waves, in good Queen Bess's time, the House of Peers made no pretence to intellectual eminence or scholarship sublime, yet Britain won her proudest bays in good Queen Bess's glorious days.
Yes, Britain won her proudest days in good Queen Bess's glorious days.
When Wellington thrashed Bonaparte, as every child can tell, the House of Peers throughout the war did nothing in particular, and did it very well. Yet Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days.
Yes, Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days.
And while the House of Peers withholds its legislative hand, and noble statesmen do not itch to interfere with matters which they do not understand, as bright will shine Great Britain's rays as in King George's glorious days.
As bright will shine Great Britain's rays as in King George's glorious days.
Layla, who has been much attracted by the peers during this song.
Charming persons, are they not?
Distinctly, for self-contained dignity combined with airy condescension. Give me a British representative peer.
Then pray stop this protege of yours before it's too late. Think of the mischief you're doing.
Layla, crying.
But we can't stop him now.
Aside to Celia.
Aren't they lovely?
Aloud.
Oh, why did you go and defy us, you great geese? In vain to us you plead. Don't go. Your prayers we do not heed. Don't go. It's true we sigh, but don't suppose a tearful eye forgiveness shows. Oh no, we're very cross indeed. Yes, very cross. Don't go.
It's true we sigh, but don't suppose a tearful eye forgiveness shows. Oh no, we're very cross indeed. Yes, very cross. Don't go.
Your disrespectful sneers, don't go. Call forth indignant tears, don't go. You break our laws, you are our foe. We cry because we hate you so. You know, you very wicked peers, you wicked peers, don't go.
You break our laws, you are our foe. We cry because we hate you so. You know, you very wicked peers, don't go.
Our disrespectful sneers, ha ha, call forth indignant tears, ha ha.
If that's
the case, my dears,
don't go.
We'll go.
Exeunt Lord Mount Ararat, Lord Tololla, and peers. Fairies gaze wistfully after them. Enter Fairy Queen.
Oh, shame, shame upon you! Is this your fidelity to the laws you are bound to obey? Know ye not that it is death to marry a mortal?
Yes, but it's not death to wish to marry a mortal.
If it were, you'd have to execute us all.
Oh, this is weakness. Subdue it.
We know it's a weakness, but the weakness is so strong.
We are not all as tough as you are.
Tough? Do you suppose that I am insensible to the effect of manly beauty? Look at that man.
Referring to Sentry.
A perfect picture.
To Sentry.
Who are you, sir?
Private Willis coming to attention.
Private Willis, B Company, 1st Grenadier Guards.
You're a very fine fellow, sir.
I am generally admired.
I can quite understand it.
To Fairies.
Now here is a man whose physical attributes are simply godlike. That man has a most extraordinary effect upon me. If I yielded to a natural impulse, I should fall down and worship that man. But I mortify this inclination. I wrestle with it, and it lies beneath my feet. That is how I treat my regard for that man. Oh, foolish Fay! Think you, because his brave array my bosom thaws, I disobey our fairy laws? Because I fly in realms above, in tendency to fall in love, resemble I the amorous dove? Oh, amorous dove, type of Ovidius Naso, this heart of mine is soft as thine, although I dare not say so.
O amorous dove, type of Ovidius Naso, this heart of mine is soft as thine, although I dare not say so.
On fire that glows with heat intense, I turn the hose of common sense, and out it goes at small expense. We must maintain our fairy law. That is the main on which to draw. In that we gain a Captain Shaw. O Captain Shaw, type of true love kept under, could thy brigade, with cold cascade, quench my great love, I wonder?
O Captain Shaw, type of true love kept under, could thy brigade with cold cascade quench my great love, I wonder?
Exeunt fairies and fairy queen sorrowfully. Enter Phyllis, half crying. I can't think why I'm not in better spirits. I am engaged to 2 noblemen at once. That ought to be enough to make any girl happy. But I'm miserable. Don't suppose it's because I care for Strephon, for I hate him. No girl could care for a man who goes about with a mother considerably younger than himself. Enter Lord Mount Ararat and Lord Tololla.
Phyllis, my darling.
Phyllis, my own.
Don't! How dare you? Oh, but perhaps you're the 2 noblemen I'm engaged to.
I am one of them.
I am the other.
Oh, then, my darling, to Lord Mount Ararat. My own, to Lord Tololla. Well, have you settled which it's to be?
Not altogether. It's a difficult position. It would be hardly delicate to toss up. On the whole, we would rather leave it to you.
How can it possibly concern me? You are both earls, and you are both rich, and you are both plain.
So we are. At least, I am.
So am I.
No, no.
I am indeed. Very plain.
Well, perhaps you are.
There's really nothing to choose between you. If one of you would forego his title and distribute his estates among his Irish tenantry, why then I should see a reason for accepting the other.
Tololla, are you prepared to make this sacrifice?
No.
Not even to oblige a lady?
No, not even to oblige a lady.
Then the only question is, which of us shall give way to the other? Perhaps, on the whole, she would be happier with me. I don't know. I may be wrong.
No, I don't know that you are. I really believe she would. But the awkward part of the thing is that if you rob me of the girl of my heart, we must fight, and one of us must die. It's a family tradition that I have sworn to respect. It's a painful position, for I have a very strong regard for you, George.
Lord Mount Ararat, much affected.
My dear Thomas.
You are very dear to me, George. We were boys together. At least I was. If I were to survive you, my existence would be hopelessly embittered.
Then, my dear Thomas, you must not do it. I say it again and again. If it will have this effect upon you, you must not do it. No, no. If one of us is to destroy the other, let it be me.
No, no.
Ah, yes. By our boyish friendship, I implore you.
Lord Tololla, much moved.
Well, well, be it so. But no, no, I cannot consent to an act which would crush you with unavailing remorse.
But it would not do, sir. I should be very sad at first. Oh, who would not be? But it would wear off. I like you very much, but not perhaps as much as you like me.
George, you're a noble fellow, but that tell-tale tear betrays you. No, George, you are very fond of me, and I cannot consent to give you a week's uneasiness on my account.
But, dear Thomas, it would not last a week. Remember, you lead the House of Lords. On your demise I shall take your place. Oh, Thomas, it would not last a day.
Now, I do hope you're not going to fight about me, because it's really not worth while. Lord Talolla, looking at her.
Well, I don't believe it is.
Nor I. The sacred ties of friendship are paramount.
Though perhaps I may incur your blame, the things are few I would not do in friendship's name.
And I may say I think the same. Not even love should rank above true friendship's name.
Then free me, pray, be mine the blame, forget your craze, and go your ways, in friendship's name.
Oh, many a man in friendship's name has yielded fortune, rank, and fame, but no one yet in the world so wide has yielded up a promised bride.
Accept, O friendship, all the same,
this sacrifice to thy dear name.
Exeunt Lord Mount Ararat and Lord Talolla, lovingly in one direction, Phyllis in another. Exit sentry. Enter Lord Chancellor, very miserable.
Love unrequited robs me of my rest. Love, hopeless love, my ardent soul encumbers. Love, nightmare-like, lies heavy on my chest, and weaves itself into my midnight slumbers. When you're lying awake with a dismal headache and repose is tabooed by anxiety, I conceive you may use any language you choose to indulge in without impropriety, for your brain is on fire, the bedclothes conspire of usual slumber to plunder you, first your counterpane goes and uncovers your toes, and your sheet slips demurely from under you, then the blanketing tickles, you feel like mixed pickles, so terribly sharp is the pricking, and you're hot and you're cross, and you tumble and toss till there's nothing twixt you and the ticking. Then the bedclothes all creep to the ground in a heap, and you pick 'em all up in a tangle. Next your pillow resigns, and politely declines to remain at its usual angle. Well, you get some repose in the form of a doze, with hot eyeballs and head over-aching, but your slumbering teems with such horrible dreams that you'd very much better be waking. For you dream you are crossing the Channel and tossing about in a steamer from Harwich, which is something between a large bathing machine and a very small second-class carriage, and you're giving a treat, penny ice and cold meat, to a party of friends and relations. They're a ravenous horde, and they all came on board at Sloane Square and South Kensington stations, and bound on that journey you find your attorney, who started that morning from Devon. He's a bit undersized, and you don't feel surprised when he tells you he's only 11. Well, you're driving like mad with this singular lad, by the by, the ship's number four-wheeler, and you're playing round games, and he calls you bad names when you tell him that ties pay the dealer. But this you can't stand, so you throw up your hand, and you find you're as cold as an icicle, in your shirt and your socks, the black silk with gold clocks, crossing Salisbury Plain on a bicycle. And he and the crew are on bicycles too, which they've somehow or other invested in, and he's telling the tars all the particulars of a company he's interested in. It's a scheme of devices to get at low prices all goods from cough mixtures to cables, which tickle the sailors, by treating retailers as though they were all vegetables. You get a good spadesman to plant a small tradesman, first take off his boots with a boot tree, and his legs will take root and his fingers will shoot, and they'll blossom and bud like a fruit tree. From the greengrocer tree you get grapes and green pea, cauliflower, pineapple, and cranberries, while the pastry could plant sherry brandy will grant apple puffs and three-quarters and banberries. The shares are a penny, and ever so many are taken by Rothschild and Baring, and just as a few are allotted to you, you awake with a shudder despairing. You're a regular wreck with a crick in your neck, and no wonder you snore, for your head's on the floor. If you've needles and pins on your soles, you singe, and your flesh is a creep, for your left leg's asleep, and a cramp in the toes, and a fly in your nose, and some fluff in your lung, and a feverish tongue, and a thirst at the tense, and a general sense that you haven't been sleeping in clover. But the darkness has passed, and it's daylight at last, and the night has been long, ditto ditto my song, and thank goodness they're both of them over.
Lord Chancellor falls exhausted on a seat. Enter Lords Mount Ararat and Talolla.
I am much distressed to see your lordship in this condition.
Ah, my lords, it is seldom that a Lord Chancellor has reason to envy the position of another, but I am free to confess that I would rather be 2 earls engaged to Phyllis than any other half-dozen noblemen upon the face of the globe.
Lord Talolla without enthusiasm.
Yes, it's an enviable position when you're the only one.
Oh, yes, no doubt. Most enviable. At the same time, seeing you thus, we naturally say to ourselves, this is very sad. His lordship is constitutionally as blithe as a bird. He trills upon the bench like a thing of song and gladness. His series of judgments in F-sharp minor, given andante in 6/8 time, are among the most remarkable effects ever produced in a court of chancery. He is, perhaps, the only living instance of a judge whose decrees have received the honour of a double encore. How can we bring ourselves to do that which will deprive the Court of Chancery of one of its most attractive features?
I feel the force of your remarks, but I am here in 2 capacities, and they clash, my lords, they clash. I deeply grieve to say that in declining to entertain my last application to myself, I presumed to address myself in terms which render it impossible for me ever to apply to myself again. It was a most painful scene, my lords, most painful.
This is what it is to have 2 capacities. Let us be thankful that we are persons of no capacity whatever.
Come, come, remember you are a very just and kindly old gentleman, and you need have no hesitation in approaching yourself, so that you do so respectfully and with a proper show of deference.
Do you really think so?
I do.
Well, I will nerve myself to another effort, and if that fails, I resign myself to my fate.
If you go in, you're sure to win. Yours will be the charming Mady. Be your law the ancient saw. Faint heart never won fair lady.
Never, never, never. Faint heart never won fair lady. Every journey has an end, when at the worst affairs will mend. Dark the dawn when day is nigh. Hustle your horse and don't say die. He who shies at such a prize is not worth a maravedi. Be so kind to bear in mind, faint heart never won fair lady. Never, 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 faint heart never won fair lady. While the sun shines, make your hay. Where a will is, there's a way. Beard the lion in his lair. None but the brave deserve the fair.
I'll take heart and make a start, though I fear the prospect shady. Much I'd spend to gain my end. Faint heart never won fair lady.
Never, never, never. Faint heart never won fair lady. Nothing venture, nothing win. Blood is thick, but water's thin. In for a penny, in for a pound. It's love that makes the world go round.
They dance and exeunt arm in arm together. Enter Strephon in very low spirits.
Fold your flapping wings, soaring legislature. Stoop to little things. Stoop to human nature. Never need to roam members patriotic. Let's begin at home. Crime is no exotic. Bitter is your bane, terrible your trials. Dingy Drury Lane, sopeless 7 Dials. Take a tipsy lout, gathered from the gutter. Hustle him about, strap him to a shutter. What am I but he, washed at hours stated, fed on filigree, clothed and educated? He's a mark of scorn, I might be another, if I had been born of a tipsy mother. Take a wretched thief, through the city sneaking, pocket handkerchief, ever, ever seeking. What is he but I robbed of all my chances, picking pockets by force of circumstances? I might be as bad, as unlucky rather, if I'd only had Fagin for a father. I suppose one ought to enjoy oneself in Parliament when one leads both parties as I do. But I'm miserable, poor broken-hearted fool that I am. Oh, Phyllis, Phyllis.
Enter Phyllis. Yes? Strephon, surprised.
Phyllis! But I suppose I should say, my lady. I have not yet been informed which title your ladyship has pleased to select.
I haven't quite decided. You see, I have no mother to advise me.
No, I have.
Yes, a young mother.
Not very. A couple of centuries or so.
Oh, she wears well.
She does. She's a fairy.
I beg your pardon, a what?
Oh, I've no longer any reason to conceal the fact. She's a fairy.
A fairy? Well, but that would account for a good many things. Then I suppose you're a fairy.
I'm half a fairy.
Which half?
The upper half, down to the waistcoat.
Dear me! Prodding him with her fingers. There is nothing to show it.
Don't do that.
But why didn't you tell me this before?
I thought you would take a dislike to me. But as it's all off, you may as well know the truth. I'm only half a mortal.
But I'd rather have half a mortal I do love than half a dozen I don't.
Oh, I think not. Go to your half-dozen.
It's only 2, and I hate 'em. Please forgive me.
I don't think I ought to. Besides, all sorts of difficulties will arise. You know, my grandmother looks quite as young as my mother. So do all my aunts.
I quite understand. Whenever I see you kissing a very young lady, I shall know it's an elderly relative.
You will? Then, Phyllis, I think we shall be very happy.
Embracing her. We won't wait long.
No, we might change our minds. We'll get married first.
And change our minds afterwards?
That's the usual course. If we're weak enough to tarry ere we marry, you and I, of the feeling I inspire you may tire by and by. For peers with flowing coffers press their offers. That is why I am sure we should not tarry ere we marry, you and I.
If we're weak enough to tarry ere we marry, you and I, with a more attractive maiden, jewel-laden, you may fly. If by chance we should be parted, broken-hearted I should die. So I think we will not tarry ere we marry, you and I. But does your mother know is she aware of our engagement? Enter Iolanthe.
She is, and thus she welcomes her daughter-in-law.
Kisses her. She kisses just like other people. But the Lord Chancellor!
I forgot him. Mother, none can resist your fairy eloquence. You will go to him and plead for us?
Iolanthe, much agitated.
No, no, impossible.
But our happiness, our very lives, depend upon our obtaining his consent.
Oh, madam, you cannot refuse to do this.
You know not what you ask. The Lord Chancellor is my husband.
Your husband?
My husband and your father.
Addressing Strephon, who is much moved. Then our course is plain. On his learning that Strephon is his son, all objection to our marriage will be at once removed.
No, he must never know. He believes me to have died childless, and, dearly as I love him, I am bound, under penalty of death, not to undeceive him. But see, he comes. Quick, my veil.
Iolanthe veils herself. Strephon and Phyllis go off on tiptoe. Enter Lord Chancellor.
Victory! Victory! Success has crowned my efforts, and I may consider myself engaged to Phyllis. At first I wouldn't hear of it. It was out of the question, but I took heart. I pointed out to myself that I was no stranger to myself, that in point of fact I had been personally acquainted with myself for some years. This had its effect. I admitted that I had watched my professional advancement with considerable interest, and I handsomely added that I yielded to no one in admiration for my private and professional virtues. This was a great point gained. I then endeavoured to work upon my feelings. Conceive my joy when I distinctly perceived the tear glistening in my own eye. Eventually, after a severe struggle with myself, I reluctantly, most reluctantly, consented.
Iolanthe comes down veiled. Iolanthe kneeling.
My lord, a suppliant at your feet I kneel. Oh, listen to a mother's fond appeal. Hear me to-night, I come in urgent need. 'Tis for my son, yon Strephon, that I plead. He loves, if in the bygone years thine eyes have ever shed tears, bitter, unavailing tears, for one untimely dead. If, in the eventide of life, sad thoughts of her arise, then let a memory of thy wife plead for my boy. He dies! He dies, if fondly laid aside in some old cabinet. Memorials of thy long dead bride lie dearly treasured yet. Then let her hallowed bridal dress, her little dainty gloves, her withered flower, her faded tress, plead for my boy. He loves.
The Lord Chancellor is moved by this appeal. After a pause,
It may not be, for so the fates decide. Learn thou that Phyllis is my promised bride.
Iolanthe in horror.
Thy bride? No, no!
It shall be so. Those who would separate us woe betide.
My doom thy lips have spoken. I plead in vain.
Fairies without.
Forbear, forbear.
A vow already broken, I break again.
Fairies without.
Forbear, forbear.
For him, for her, for thee, I yield my life. Behold, it may not be. I am thy wife.
Fairies without.
Ayaya, ayaya, willaloo.
Lord Chancellor, recognizing her.
Iolanthe, thou livest.
I live. Now let me die.
Enter Fairy Queen and fairies. Iolanthe kneels to her.
Once again thy vows are broken. Thou thyself thy doom hast spoken.
Ayaya, ayaya, willahalla, willaloo. Willahalla, willaloo.
Bow thy head to destiny, death thy doom, and thou shalt die.
Ayaya, ayaya, willahalla, willaloo. Willahalla, willaloo.
Peers and sentry enter. The Queen raises her spear.
Hold! If Iolanthe must die, so must we all, for, as she has sinned, so have we.
What?
We are all fairy duchesses, marchionesses, countesses, viscountesses, and baronesses.
It's our fault. They couldn't help themselves.
It seems they have helped themselves, and pretty freely too.
After a pause.
You have all incurred death, but I can't slaughter the whole company. And yet,
unfolding a scroll,
the law is clear. Every fairy must die who marries a mortal.
Allow me, as an old equity draftsman, to make a suggestion. The subtleties of the legal mind are equal to the emergency. The thing is really quite simple. The insertion of a single word will do it. Let it stand that every fairy shall die who doesn't marry a mortal, and there you are, out of your difficulty at once.
We like your humour. Very well.
Altering the manuscript in pencil.
Private Willis.
Sentry coming forward.
Ma'am?
To save my life, it is necessary that I marry at once. How should you like to be a fairy guardsman?
Well, ma'am, I don't think much of the British soldier who wouldn't ill-convenience himself to save a female in distress.
You are a brave fellow. You're a fairy from this moment.
Wings spring from the sentry's shoulders.
And you, my lords? How say you? Will you join our ranks?
Fairies kneel to peers and implore them to do so. Phyllis and Strephon enter. Lord Mount Ararat to Lord Talolla.
Well, now that the peers are to be recruited entirely from persons of intelligence, I really don't see what use we are down here. Do you, Talolla?
None whatever.
Good.
Wings spring from shoulders of peers.
Then away we go to fairyland.
Soon as we may, off and away, we'll commence our journey airy. Happy are we, as you can see, everyone is now a fairy.
Everyone is now a fairy.
Though as a general rule we know, 2 strings go to every bow. Make up your minds that grief will bring, if you've 2 bows to every string. Though as a general rule we know, 2 strings go to every bow. Make up your minds that grief will bring, if you've 2 bows to every string.
Up in the sky, ever so high, pleasures come in endless series. We will arrange happy exchange, house of peers for house of peeries.
Peries,
House of peers.
Up in the air, sky high, free from the wars in Chancery, he will be surely happier for, he's such a susceptible chancellor.
Up in the air, sky high, free from the wars in Chancery, he will surely be happier for, he's such a susceptible chancellor.
Curtain. End of Act 2. End of Iolanthe by W. S. Gilbert.